Pedro from A&P-Reacts. I'm here today with Eugene of Jinjer to talk about Wallflowers, out right now. By the time you listen to this conversation, the album is out. You probably already spinned it 100 times. How excited are you to finally see this album reach all of your fans and the world in general?
Well, I am extremely excited. I am nervous because, well, I think it's natural to be nervous when you share a piece of your work with so many people around the globe. And I'm happy. I'm happy that it is finally out. I'm really happy that Wallflowers song is finally out because, well, I'm both very, very proud of both the album and the song, and just in general, all the work we've done over the last year and a half with the band. So cannot be happier than I am now. It's time to share this piece of work with the rest of the world.
How much did the previous 3 records taught you that really helped making this album, that without those 3 records, this album would not be possible?
Absolutely, absolutely, Pedro. It's interesting that subconsciously, without even understanding that, we obviously look back at what we did before. We were looking back at what we did before while we were making this album. And now, after I had time, to listen a lot to the new record, and I was comparing our new music with the past music. And in fact, with this album, I must admit, we kind of maybe not really step back, but we took a lot and maybe just refurbished this. Yeah, took a lot from King of Everything album. This record, which is now out, is more similar to King of Everything and micro rather than macro. It's after time passes, it's fun to just again look back and analyze everything happened. And it's interesting that nobody noticed, or maybe noticed but never talked about that openly, that macro actually was in big respect, in big matter, a new metal record. It was very close to new metal, and this is definitely what not like that on the upcoming record. Upcoming record is actually metal, like it's metal straight up into your face. Yeah, and macro was more cohesive, I think, more just mainstream. Yeah, I can openly say that macro was more mainstream. Definitely, this is the word.
You're comfortable enough with that statement now?
Yeah, absolutely. I am comfortable enough. I admit this. Macro was mainstream, and with this record, we are actually going back to the roots of true metal.
So when you start looking at making this album, do you start to take a little bit, not only of what you created in the previous records, but also the experience that you've gained touring, being on the road, performing? How much of all of that came into making this album? The mixture of what you guys did in the studio and the mixture of what you guys have learned for being on the road for so long?
A very good question. I didn't think about this before, but somehow I instantly came up with the answer. We really used a lot of experience gained on stage live while making this album, in the way that we didn't over complicate anything, in my opinion. The arrangements and parts we play, instrumental ones, they are not really that much technically difficult. We used to have more complicated songs on micro, for example, or on macro. There were some pieces which are more complicated, in my opinion. But maybe I might be mistaken, because we might just have grown up as musicians, and what used to be hard for us, not hard for us anymore. So it's I think that the truth is somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the middle. But generally, we do not think about how we're gonna play this on stage live while composing. I think it comes naturally, because with all that experience on stage, you just subconsciously write something that really fits your skills. And then, honestly, again, partly for the reason that we had the pre-production sessions and we recorded material before working with Max in the studio, but also because I can honestly say that we are quite experienced in terms of live performances. I think that it also influenced what we are playing now, the new material, because it really fits the manner we play.
How do you balance as a band? When people think of Jinjer, there's always a sound experience that comes associated with the name of the band. But how do you balance keeping the DNA of the band intact and always striving to do something different, to push that envelope, to do something unique, to keep that creative drive taking you from album to album? Is that a hard thing to balance out for you guys?
It is not. It is not. I think again, maybe I will keep saying the word natural too often, but it is really like that. It comes naturally, and I believe that one of the reasons why we managed to create something new and at the same time remain what we are, because, well, honestly, we are not drastically changing our music style with each record. We remain to be heavy and groovy and progressive, but at the same time, it's all the time different in some way. It's not like changing the style completely. It's not like Opus when they just changed, I think, turned the opposite direction. Yeah, or like same thing happened to Paradise Lost, Tiamat, a lot of bands, and Nazama back in the days. Yeah, it's not like that. We remain more or less in the same, let's say, boat, but it managed to bring something new. I think it happens because we are not looking at anyone. We do not try to copy anyone. We do not try to follow any trends. We follow only our own trends with each record. We just do what we want to play. There are a lot of bands I know personally, because this is what people told me. They try to adapt to new trends. They try to be similar to somebody else and play safe by means of that. And this is what we never do. We don't care of what the others play. We of course, yeah, listen to that and this, it's all right. But we never think like, okay, this sounds good. We need to implement in our music, in our next record, because it goes well and people follow it. No, this is not about us.
But I think you guys have such a well-trained fan base, right? Like your fans have learned to understand that you guys are not a band that's going to release 2 albums that sound the same. So I think you have something really positive on your side. A lot of bands have pressure from their fan base to go in one direction or another. You guys are the complete opposite. The fans just want to listen to Jinjer, and they know that listening to Jinjer comes with a lot of different perspectives, and those different perspectives are perhaps painted differently on each album while still being the same band with the same backdrop. Do you see it that way?
I see it that way completely, and I appreciate our fan base a lot for being like that, for being open-minded, for having a very wide range of tastes, for being clever and intelligent, to follow us. It costs a lot, and I value this a lot. So guys over there, thank you very much. Yeah.
Now that same fan base, when you guys started talking about the release of this album, at the beginning, you guys were calling it number 4, when you guys were teasing everybody with when you guys were in the studio. everybody was talking about how this is going to be Jinjer's heaviest album. Is this Jinjer's heaviest album?
For sure. The paradox, and I can say that paradox is a part of our style, unique style. The opposites, the unity of opposites, is that this record is actually at the same time the most aggressive and at the same time the most beautiful. It perfectly balances between extreme and aggressive music. Just in many parts, what we play on this record is death metal. It's straight death metal, and at the same time, you heard the album. You know there are a lot of jazzy moments, just soft rock moments, post rock moments. Yeah, and it perfectly combines with each other. What I really love about Vlad's way of composing is that this guy just do not put riffs next to each other. For him, music is not a puzzle, which is common for a lot of bands. They just put riffs one after another and think it's all right. At some point, it's all right. I don't blame them for this. But if we look at the really serious and well-acclaimed musical art, like classical music, for example, or modern classical music, or really well-acclaimed jazz, it is never like that. They do not just switch from one piece to another. There is something in between. There are variations in each bar or each square which lead somehow to the next piece. Yeah, and this is what Vlad brought to Jinjer. So if you carefully listen to the songs, even not only composed by him, but by me or by Roman, one part flows into another. Flows most commonly. Of course, there are some pieces which are just, straight change, just for a reason. Yeah, but very often there is something in between. The very ending of that certain riff is different from the one in the middle, so that it not slowly, but harmonically changes and turns into another. And this is one of the new features which we have.
This album, did it change for you in terms of how you guys approach it creatively, considering that perhaps you had more time to work on it versus previous records where you guys were like on tour, rushing to go get the album done and then going right back on tour again? Did having a little bit of extra time because of the pandemic allowed you a little bit more freedom?
It gave us even more time than enough. Even more time than enough, unfortunately. But we used it in our own favor. We used it very intelligently. The process was, like I told in many interviews before, very different from how we used to do it. But again, even though we had a lot of time and we really took composing differently, we kept in mind that we are not that. First of all, we never wanted to polish our music, sound-wise, for example. Sound-wise, we wanted to stay raw and heavy and acoustic in the way that, again, we keep saying that our music doesn't have any, electronic stuff like samples or anything like that. So you can actually hear what you hear on the record is what we recorded. Every single hit on drums, snare, kicks, it's exactly what Vlad played. Nothing was replaced. Or same time with the bass. Yeah, we just record the bass in quite long pieces. Yeah, so like it's not like recording note by note. And I intentionally asked not to overdo with the editing, nothing like that. So it sounds, it is really what I'm playing. Same for the guitar, and it's awesome. I believe, because this is what music should really be.
Yeah, and I think it helps you once you go live with the tracks, because then it's like it's a seamless motion going from how you sounded on the record to then how you're going to sound when you play these songs in front of fans.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now I have to ask you this, because we've talked about this issue of the track listing outside of this conversation, but since you're here, I have to ask you about As I Boil Ice, because when I was listening to the album, I felt like this was the closer of the record. It just had that finishing feel to it. But then you still have a Mediator that comes afterwards. And I know we've talked about it, but people haven't heard our conversation. So can you share the story behind how these two tracks came together?
Of course, there is nothing to hide, no secret. As I Boil Ice was supposed to be the last track, the last song on the record. And the Mediator song was supposed to be a bonus. But vocals change everything. Because Mediator was recorded one of the last during the recording session. We just heard it quite late, and we were absolutely stunned by Tatiana performance. It's on this song as a vocalist. It blew us off. It's just, yeah. This is one of the few songs I wasn't present when she recorded Mediator, Call Me a Symbol. And when I heard Mediator, just late night that day, I had to spend time with my family. I wasn't present there, so they just sent me the raw recording, just her tracking with the music. I listened to it and I just was stunned. I was stunned, and this is when everything changed. We didn't want anymore just to hide Mediator and make it just a bonus. We really wanted to include it into the album. Because this song is full of, again, a unity of opposites. This is musically maybe one of the heaviest songs we ever composed, with tons of blast beats. It's like death metal. And with Tatiana's vocals, it changed into something absolutely different. And some people noticed what the sound, the similarities. I saw some comments on YouTube. People really noticed that. Actually, this is a song which is a kind of a tribute. It turned to be like that. We didn't intend to do that, but it's very Protest the Heroes. It is kind of in that style, and it is very important for us because back in the days when we just started as a band, Protest the Hero were one of the heroes for the influences for Jinjer. If you listen to the first EP, Inhale, Do Not Breathe, there are actually quite a lot of Protest the Hero influences there. And it was cool, it's like, again, getting back to the roots. It's like getting back to the roots. It was cool to have a song like that. We decided to put it into the album. But then when it came to just sorting the songs, it turned out that we cannot just put it anywhere else. We need to leave it as the bonus at the very end, but it's not a bonus anymore. So you can officially now consider that we just made a song available on all platforms and records because we love it, and we made it a single and paid attention to it. But it was supposed to be a bonus. Yeah, we just did it so because we love the song, first of all, and we wanted to share it with everybody. Yeah, and it is exactly where we planned to put it, at the very end. And right, you can just consider the album to be over with As I Boil Ice, and then there is postscriptum. Yeah. It's not a bonus. Mediator is a postscriptum. The story is over, and there is the P.S. and Mediator.
When we were having this conversation about the track listing, and you explained this to me, I was like, wow, now it feels different. Do you know what I mean? Like, now when I listen to the album, I listen to the album with that mindset that the album finishes there, like if it was a letter, and then the last track is that P.S., that last message that I forgot to include in the original story that I was writing. And when you approach it from that perspective, it's almost like the whole record feels differently just by having that mindset. Because to me, like as I was listening to the album and I get to that track, I'm like, it should have ended here. It was just the perfect note. But now I feel differently about it. And I'm glad you guys included this track. It's such an incredible, powerful song.
And it shows us from a different perspective. It just represents the band from a different view, from a different point of view. And it's awesome. It's awesome because the last thing we want is to be boring, to be one and the same all the time. This is the last thing we want. It's better for me, it's better to be hated rather than somebody just is indifferent to me. I don't mind if you don't like it. Okay, hate it. But indifference is what I completely do not stand.
Yeah, that's definitely worse. You talked about the evolution of the band, the changes that the band has gone through, the different sounds, the more proggy, the more groovy. So if you were explaining Jinjer to somebody who's never heard of the band before, how would you explain the sound?
You
would
see,
play a song.
I said this a few times before, and I'll say it again. Talking in words about music is never complete. Maybe it makes sense, but it will never be able to represent what it is really, what it really is. So you need to listen to the music. Yeah, I can put a label on our music, but it will never be able to represent the whole spectrum of what it is really in the reality. We can easily say that Jinjer is a progressive groove metal band, but you know us very well. You know our music very well. You listen to it. Is that enough to say that it is just progressive groove metal?
No, but that's the problem with Jinjer. I think once you start try to fit you guys into a label or try to fit you into a box, you're leaving so much outside the box that what you're putting into the box is really not enough to give people a picture of everything that you're getting, you know?
I believe that it's just wrong. There were some bands throughout the whole, history of metal music, which just must not be put into one genre or style because they will never fit. And because of this, forcing somebody into something, there may be quite a lot of negativity. For example, I have a perfect example of how bad it may be. That a lot of people still consider us and somehow, for some reason, call us a metalcore band, which we're not anymore for years and years and years. And again, it was only Inhale Do Not Breathe, which was metalcore. Everything else has nothing to do with this. Especially now, it's just zero metalcore.
Yeah.
And that is why there might be quite a lot of confusion for kids, 16 years old kids who are crazy about metalcore. And then they are suggested Jinjer, they have a listen to it and they do not understand shit. Just do not. It's like there's a cool metaphor, not a metaphor, but example. I heard that back in the 16th century, when Europeans, the Spanish, came to America by ship, Native Americans saw those ships, and they just didn't see it. They, of course, understood that there is something maybe, but it was kind of blurred. They were watching through it because in their reality there was no such a thing at all. They couldn't observe it. They couldn't embrace it with their psychology, with their mind. And this is what might happen when somebody is not familiar with such music, which is not, limited at all And when but they look at this from the perspective of metalcore.
Yeah, I think like when I talk to people about Jinjer, or every time we check one of your tracks on the channel, I always say Jinjer, well, they're their own genre. You guys are your own genre. You guys just you're Jinjer, and to me that's enough. I don't need anything else.
I would say differently. I would say that we are out of any genres. We are out of any genres. You can call it metal, yes, but that's it. Yeah,
That's it.
just metal.
Just metal. Going back into this record, the guitar sound to me, it felt slightly different, specifically when you look at Macro now versus this record. Did Roman try something new? Was there something different that you guys did on this album?
We have a piece of new gear, but I'll tell you a secret. In fact, guitar sound is what almost didn't change since the last record. The reason why you hear it like that is because everything else changed. And I actually watched your review on the Wallflowers, and you are right that on this record the guitars really shine. Mm-hmm. It's a guitar album for sure, and the reason why it happened like that is because we let the guitar shine. We changed the sound of bass. It does not interfere with the guitar anymore. We made the drums a little bit different, and that is why the guitar is up front. And it is really cool. This is one of the reasons why this record is so aggressive.
Well, that's really interesting. By changing everything else, you allow the guitars to be the same but sound different at the same time. Something that only Jinjer could come up with.
I bet now. I bet that we are not that unique, man. There are a lot of cool bands out there, cool musicians who really understand what they do, and there were a lot of examples like that.
You talked earlier about the impact that Tati had on the vocals for Mediator and pushing that song somewhere you didn't think it was going to go. How interesting it is for you to work with somebody like her, and what does that do for you guys when you're in the lab creating the music? Do you always think about what she's going to bring to the songs?
Throughout all these years, we just learned on our own experience that it makes no sense. It makes no sense to try to expect something from her or forecast. Yeah, it just makes no sense because you will anyway be caught by surprise when she goes into the vocal booth. It's her. You may, and on a few parts, a few moments of this record, I was trying to imagine, oh, Tati may sing here like that, or may growl here like that. Then she does it absolutely differently, and every time she nails it down because, well, I don't know how, but she manages to feel the vibe of the music perfectly. And every time sometimes, very rarely, it's a bit of a miss. And then we say, oh, Tari, may you change something here? And actually, most of the times, she understands herself that this piece isn't that good. And then we redo this, then we change this. But most of the time, 90% of cases, she just hits bullseye.
Wow. And we've talked about her, we talked about Roman, we talked about Vlad, we have to talk about you and your bass. What was your game plan coming into this record?
The guys helped me a lot. I wouldn't say that it is my game plan. We were already working on the songs, making pre-production demos, and we were recording the bass. And the guys, once I just came to the studio, we were just recording with my old sound, this punchy, clicky, a bit cornish sound I used to have. Wait a second, I have a call. I just had a call from Vlad, sorry. Yeah, I'll have to miss it. Basically, they made me change my sound. I once came to the rehearsal studio and they were already waiting for me. like in an ambush. Yeah, and they just told me, look, we've got this pedal, and we tried on this on bass without you, and it sounds awesome. Well, and it really did sound awesome. It is like that. So, yeah, they mainly they created my new sound. Yeah, I also added my own, taste into it, because they looked at this from the perspective of guitarists, because they all both play the guitar, and they are more of guitarists than bassists. I told them that, yeah, this is cool, but this must be, must be complete. This must be perfect. And we just tried this and that, and finally we came up to what we have on the record. And well, I'm more than happy about how I sound on this record, because on one hand, and most importantly, I do not interfere with the other instruments. And on the other hand, I managed to bring the foundation for the whole mix. So this heaviness comes a lot from bass, and the massiveness. This is the word. Massiveness comes from bass. This is exactly how bass, in my opinion, should sound. It should be massive. I would say it like that. In order to understand how much a bassist does in a band, you just need to have a mix with the bass and without the bass. And when we just switch off the bass, when the change is drastic, just huge, it means that the bassist really works. In most of the cases, unfortunately, in heavy music, it is not like that. So bassists, we just, somewhere in the back. A lot of bands just have us for, I don't know, for another person on the stage. It is really still like that, and I don't think it's fair, because I don't think it's fair purely from the point of view of musicality, because the bass guitar may bring so many colors to the music.
I agree with you. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the bass, and one of the things that I always liked about Jinjer is how much you can hear the bass. Like you can, it's an element that you can break out from the other elements. It's there to give a little bit of the foundation of the sound, but then you also go into those groovy bass lines. It just adds life. It adds feel to the music, and without it, you don't have the same records.
Absolutely, and well, I'm proud that I managed to bring this onto the table. What really makes me, what really inspires me is actually the classical approach to the music. When you listen to an orchestra, you just listen to a few voices at the same time, and this is what is really cool to implement in heavy music, because by each instrument you may recreate a number of musicians from an orchestra. You can replace yourself a few musicians at the same time. And it is really cool when heavy music consists of several voices, rather than just having two guitars, bass, and drums playing one and the same thing, which is also cool sometimes for some genres. I love listening to this music too, but this is not what I want to do. I do not want to follow these footsteps. Yeah, if you listen to our music, there are always a few voices playing at the same time, and sometimes three voices and vocals on top of this. And of course, you need to have a well-trained ear in order to be able to enjoy this music. But it's also a matter of experience. Just you need to train your ears. If you grab a person from out of the state and bring them to a symphonic orchestra concert, I bet they just won't understand the shit. But after a few times listening to really cool classical works, they will start enjoying it, I'm sure.
Yeah, you have to train your ears for sure. When you look back at this record, was there a specific song on this album that gave you some gray hairs that you guys had a difficult time with?
Depends on what you call difficult time. Wallflower took the longest because we were stuck in some places composing. I brought the sketch for this song, and they couldn't come up with the guitar parts for one piece. And then I went to see the family in Russia with my wife, and I got back in a week, and they spent the whole week sitting every day in the studio and, you know, picking this and this option, and they changed it completely. Just they only preserved the rhythm, but they changed notes. They changed. I used to have major in this piece. They changed it into minor, but it fit perfectly. And eventually, we have the song the way it is now. Yeah, so it took the longest, but it was kind of fun process. As for something new at that time, for me personally, it was a bit hard to learn Copycat because it's a fast song and there are a few technically difficult riffs. So, but it's just a matter of practice. Maybe same for Call Me Symbol and Colossus. There are just technically difficult parts, but I managed to, you know, do it.
That's what makes it fun, right? Last question for you, Eugene, and that is when you step away from this album now for a little bit and you can see the work that you guys have achieved with Wallflowers, what is the biggest strength that this record has to offer?
Hard to point one. I think that the biggest strength we have is the groove. I was shown a hater's reaction to one of our songs not long ago. And it's fun that the guys were really, you know, piling us with shit. But all the way along, one of them was sitting and nodding. So no matter whether you like it or not, but it makes you nod. This is the strength of our music, and particularly this record. So it may be progressive, jazzy, whatever you call it, but it always has the groove.
It's funny you say that, and it's funny that we're going to finish our conversation on this note, because somebody gave me shit on my review of the album by using the word groovy. They're like, I'm tired of people calling this groovy. It is groovy. Like if a steak is a steak, what do you want me to call it? I cannot call it fish. Like, you know what I mean? It is groovy. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that sees it.
Absolutely. And well, it's just something nobody can deny. I mean, haters gonna hate. I don't mind that. I actually love you guys. If you listen to listening to me now, I love you anyway. Yeah, but you cannot deny that this music makes you nod, and this is the main thing about it.
Well, Eugene, thank you very much for taking the time from your hotel room into our living rooms. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And I hope to see you in North America this fall during your North American tour. You guys have a Toronto stop, so let's keep our fingers crossed.
Let's keep our fingers crossed. I will add at the end that we are doing everything possible to make it happen, like always. Even now, I don't know if you heard, but the Resurrection Fest this year is just 20 times smaller than usual. It is a seated festival. People are sitting there. Before the interview, I was just there, and it looks weird. And I know that I was told by a band, I met their band, they told me that the only reason they are playing there is because another band who was supposed to play the stand of that instead of them, they just refused. They canceled because it's a seated festival. Yeah, and this is what I do not understand. We will make everything possible to come and play, even if it is restricted shows. We come and play, no matter what it takes. So I really appreciate our fans. Like you said, we have a very dedicated fan base. I really appreciate our fan base for all the love and appreciation that they are giving to us. And we are trying to pay back with our dedication to them. So the only reason which stops us from playing is when we are not allowed into the country, when the governor says, no, we close everything down. When we are in jail. If we are in jail, unfortunately, we are not playing. But unless it is like that, we will come and play.
Well, and I hope to see you here. Thank you once again. Thank you for your time. Congratulations on the album, and stay safe out there and give the best to the band and to your family. Take care.
Take care too, Pedro. It was really nice to talk to you.
It's always a pleasure. Bye.
Bye.